Superintendent, you've been an educator a long time. And what are the unique challenges you're facing now because of the COVID virus?
I think the first one that comes to mind is it just keeps changing. You know, we work real hard. We think we've got a good plan for opening up school, and then it changes. So it's a moving target, and I think what we've learned is we've had to develop several different types of plans because we do want the students back and we know we've got to start school back, but how it looks, it just keeps changing. I think another thing that's been a challenge for us as a small district is being able to pull off a virtual academy. And we had roughly around 20% of our students request that. And in looking at numbers, just for example, for elementary, we ended up with 304. That's a school. So we've had to create a virtual academy school and staff it with full-time virtual academy teachers.
So y'all create your own virtual academy.
That's what we ended up doing at the elementary level. You know, at the middle and high school, it's going to look a little different because we have the ability to use Apex, and teachers, we've got ones and twosies for different courses, and so they'll, you know, earn a stipend to actually work with these students after their regular face-to-face day. It's voluntary. But the elementary, there were just, you know, the numbers afforded ourselves to actually put 2 teachers at every grade level, you know, 5K through 6th. And so that's how we've been able to do it. But it's a challenge because we've never been there. We've never done this before. And we want to make sure that our students that are virtual receive the same academic experience that a student that comes into our building face-to-face would receive. So, you know, we feel good about those two. But as I've told, you know, our parents, when I made my announcement last week based on the governor's directive of having 2 options, which we were already doing 2 options, so that wasn't so much. But my concern by his comments was whether or not you could go full all students distance, because it didn't appear that that's what he was opening the door to. And so I told my parents that if, you know, the levels are high, and I've said this all along, that I'm not going to put any staff member or student in harm's way, period. And so if the levels keep increasing, you know, we'll just start distance learning for all students until I feel that in talking with the health officials and DHEC that it's safe. You know, we probably have about 23% of our employees that would be considered in that high-risk category of suffering, you know, having severe symptoms, and God forbid, you know, lose their life over it, and I'm just not comfortable.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, and we know the virus is here. And one of the things that, you know, CDC and DHEC have been very, in their guidance, have talked about reducing the number of cohorts that a, you know, child has. Well, you think about all those households coming into a enclosed public building, and so, you know, I am concerned about that. So right now, our plan is to open on the 31st. That gives us about 5.5 weeks from today to see what happens, and I'm hopeful that transmission levels will begin to decline and hospital bed usage, which we're monitoring that, will decline. And of course, you know, the DHEC has come out with the disease by county tool, and when it initially was unveiled, I think the public perceived that as if you get that high rating, you can't open schools. And that was never really the intent. It was to provide superintendents and school districts with another additional data point to look at and consider. But within a county, you've got multiple zip codes, and so what we're experiencing in Pendleton looks different than what is happening in Powdersville or in downtown Anderson. And so, you know, we're looking at those data points. So,
did having the end of the year last year, doing some distant learning, help prepare for this, or teachers going to be a little more prepared because they've done some of it?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, we had to create a plan on a dime, right? You know, we got the announcement of closure on Sunday, and we flipped around some days and moved a PD day to that Monday so teachers could come in and work and do what they needed to do. I think that in conjunction with the fact that we've been one-to-one for many years. Probably we're going into our sixth year of one-to-one. So our parents and students are pretty comfortable with devices now.
Yeah, remind everybody what one-to-one is if they don't know.
Okay, so students in grades 4 through 12 are issued a Chromebook that can travel home back to school. Now we are one-to-one in 4K up, but we didn't have as much experience with sending Chromebook home, for 5K through third grade, which we ended up providing them Chromebooks. And so what I would say to answer your question is, when we finished, we had a lot of debriefing with our teachers, multitudes of Zoom calls to better understand what were the things that they felt we did really well, and then what are the issues, what do we need to make sure that when we experience this again, that we make sure we don't repeat. And I think like an example would be, in our early childhood grades, students need to have time with the device to be able to learn how to log on, how to access their assignments, how to submit them, those kind of things. And then the second thing that comes to mind is we really saw that a parent training piece has to be put in place. And so we are actually getting ready to unveil that opportunity for our parents to participate via Zoom right now, to where they can learn how they can best support and assist their child, using a device and what that might look like.
How has this affected, like, you normally have 3 and 5 year plans, and you already had, this time last year you were already thinking next year we're going to do this. How has this affected your planning for this year?
Well, I'll be honest with you, it's full time. Like, there were no breaks for us this summer, not that there typically are, but everybody's been all hands on deck every day all summer. We've had to spend enormous amount of time in developing these plans and really thinking through how to schedule. A virtual schedule's, it's taken days and work to try to figure out how all this would work while you're running a face-to-face. And so, that takes away from planning about, your long-range facility plan and all these other things that you're looking at. And to be honest with you, right now, we're just trying to make sure that when we do launch, we're going to have an effective instructional program in place for our students.
And I know y'all have been making sure that the kids who depended on meals from the schools have been getting those this whole time. A lot of people don't realize people have been working full-time doing that too. I guess that'll continue with the kids, the elementary schools that are at home.
Yeah, actually, it seems like a simple thing. It was probably, you talk about last semester, every single one of us participated in helping to bag meals and deliver them. I mean, it was 10,000 meals a week. And so that became one of the major operations that were based out of our schools because everybody was remote. And so in looking forward to when we return, I was just in a meeting yesterday with our food service director, and she said, I'm just trying to figure out how all this is going to work, because you've got to think about, in a building now, you have to be socially distanced. We're looking at doing breakfast in the classroom. So how does food get from the cafeteria, to those students? Right now, they haven't received the waiver that all students can receive meals like we did in the spring. So you have your free, reduced, and paying. So how does that really work? Because not all students go online, or their parents go online and put enter in money into their food account. And so how do you collect those dollars in the classroom? How's that work? Well, then you think about just a hot meal at lunch, buying the equipment that you need to be able to roll those meals that are then, have a cellophane, kind of like a TV dinner, so that they stay warm. So you have to buy all the things you need to make that happen, but then who's going to get that Salisbury steak, and then who gets the pizza? I mean, all these things they have to think about as they're delivering food throughout the school. All right, well, then you have your VLA students. And so we just finished developing, as we're speaking, an online VLA Google form so that parents who want to go ahead and participate, there's students at home, but they can certainly participate in our meal program. So they'll have an opportunity to sign up for breakfast or lunch, and they would come to the school and pick it up as a grab and go. So it really, when you begin to think about how services are expanded, I don't know if people really think about your food food service associates, and how much more work they're going to have to do to run 2 types of lunch programs and breakfast programs. And then your custodians. I mean, we've had to add personnel temporarily because the level of cleaning and disinfecting it doubled. We had clean schools before, but now they have to be done in a different manner because of the virus. And so, we've got people just, that's their job, is the backpack sprayer with electrostatic spraying device, so that they can make sure that every school, every day, once every person is out, is completely disinfected, so that when students arrive and staff arrive in the morning, the school's been clean and fully disinfected every day. Every day.
So these are the kind of things that people don't think about. They just think about classroom and teaching, and they don't think about all the things that, even in a normal year when you have to keep up with cafeteria workers and all that stuff, and this kind of challenge. And how about bus drivers? Are y'all okay with bus drivers? Because a lot of people have had trouble with bus drivers.
We made the decision. I think, in other parts of the state, they've had to think about if they can keep their bus drivers on if they're going to be distance learning, and I made the decision to keep our drivers on. They can assist in a lot of different ways. They were very instrumental in our food service preparation as well as delivery, and so I know that there's going to be opportunities to use them even if we're completely distance learning. We'll need those folks to assist us, even if it's picking up assignments or delivering assignments or food or whatever it is. I feel like we're going to need those extra, folks on hand, to assist us.
How about extracurricular activities? That's always been a big part of, particularly middle school and high school. Is that going to be virtual, or how are they going to do that?
Well, we know how important those are, but my decisions really start with the safety. And if we're able to open up our schools, I do agree with the guidance that we need to minimize unnecessary people in the building. And so, to me, instruction is primary. And so we've really eliminated a lot of things at the elementary level, and honestly, middle and high school. But the one extracurricular, or the couple extracurriculars that we're open to, obviously there's South Carolina High School League, the sports. I think they came up with a very good plan, with I think very solid guidance in terms of safety precautionary measures, which we've been doing. And I think our band program is, they've announced that they're not going to be having the competition, the marching band competition, but that local districts could, if they wanted to, hold a local competition or contest. And we have clearly not discussed that. But I think what our band directors are interested, or at least at the high school, is being able to have, a show that students in the band program could actually practice and do. So actually I have a meeting on Monday with him to see if that is something that we could do and execute it safely. Their guidance is a little different than what the guidance is for just, moving in a school and instruction. And then the other extracurricular that would be open to any student if they're face-to-face or virtual is our archery program. That is has been in place here and is very popular among all of our students, K-12. Huge following, so we wanted to make sure that was available. But beyond that, honestly, it goes back to safety. And we've had to make some very tough decisions to eliminate certain things, but I don't think we're at a point where you can bring those things back in. So they're temporary decisions, but again, it's based on safety.
When teachers teach remotely, do they teach from here or from their homes, or how does that work?
When the governor did the mandatory closure, the executive order, everybody was home except for district personnel. We worked, and our principals did. And then the last 8 days, I required everybody to come in because it was all hands on deck to close the school year down. We learned a lot. And so next year, I feel very confident with all the things I'm requiring in terms of safety, that if we are distance learning for all students, all employees will be physically reporting to school unless the transmission levels rise to a point where it's unsafe. But we've done a lot of things, and honestly, we made these decisions 4 or 5 weeks ago, so this isn't anything new. I mean, I hear more districts require that. Well, that was our number one. I mean, students and staff are required to wear masks when you can't social distance. We've ordered desks to replace tables. We had a number of classrooms that had long tables instead of desks, and you can't really social distance well. So we ordered 1,200 and some odd desks, and moving out unnecessary items in the classroom. We actually purchased temperature detectors, and it's just like a walk-through device, and we'll have multiple at all schools, so every student and staff member will have their temperature detected when they arrive at school. We've also budgeted money for additional materials and resources for every student, so that instead of sharing, a box of crayons or whatever, students now will have their own supplies, and we would provide those for virtual students as well. I feel good about what we've put in place. We've bought shields. If teachers want to add a shield on top of a mask, they can do that. We've bought masks that are clear here for our speech therapists and students. We've got boxes and boxes and boxes of disposable children's and adult masks. We initially tried to think about providing a disposable mask for every student every day, but it was getting unaffordable, like $600,000, $700,000, which we couldn't do. And so we will be asking parents to provide that, but we will have some at all the schools. We've got reusable masks as well. So, I mean, there's the sanitizer. We installed those devices in every classroom. In addition to that, we've got stations. I mean, we've just really thought through what I think all districts are doing. We've even purchased plexiglass for critical areas in our nurses' offices and in our reception areas. That will be installed just as another layer of protection. I mean, I just don't think you can be too safe, and we know the virus is out there. And so I think, as long as we're following what the latest guidance is, that gives me comfort. You asked me, will adults be coming back in the building? And the reason I feel good about it is because, they would be able to go to their classroom and work. They're not coming back to work in a classroom with 5 adults, right? So, they'll be able to be on site, have all their resources, be able to do those Zoom instructional classroom meetings with students. I mean, we really are looking at trying to mirror the traditional day in a virtual way. So that's a big difference from the spring. The spring, the State Department gave us guidance in terms of shorten the minutes. This is a real burden for parents. Grace before grading. And we did that. But now, looking forward, we can't do that. I mean, students have to be accountable for attendance, whether they're virtual or face-to-face. It's not a free ticket because the State Department last year said everybody's marked present. And I think that contributed to the 10,000 kids that went truant, right? I mean, and I don't fault anybody. It's just we were moving fast and we had to do the best we can. We've had more time. And I think a big message to parents would be that if you choose virtual or if we go distance learning for all students, it won't be what it was in the spring. It'll pretty much be like a traditional school day, but at your home. And we'll provide the hot spots. I mean, we provided them in the spring, but we've purchased more. So, we want to make sure that our students have the tools to be able to be successful at home.
A lot of the things you're talking about take a lot of money. How has it affected the budget?
We've had to make some tough decisions. And I made a decision back in February when all this was just starting. I froze all travel and professional development and all projects, all operational facility projects that weren't already down the road. And so all that money didn't get spent, and it was basically rolled over to this year to help cover all these expenses that we know are exorbitant. Now, we received about $506,000 in the CARES money, for coronavirus relief. And that's gracious and we need it, but it's a drop in the bucket when you look at all the things, that I'm rattling off that we've had to put in place. That doesn't even touch personnel. All the additional custodians and, food service, all these things that we're having to do. And we actually had to add a couple of positions to pull off the Virtual Learning Academy. There were a couple positions we had to add. So that's just additional. So to answer your question, it's very lean, it's very tight. And if the legislature comes back in and based on, the drop in, penny sales tax, when we were, all quarantined or, asked to stay at home, that's going to hurt us and everybody else. I mean, we're not the only one in this situation. And, we knew very clearly that we needed to be very frugal and be mindful that there may be some cuts that we may receive in the fall. But I feel we've got a healthy fund balance, and I think we've made some very good calls early on that I don't feel at all concerned that, we're going to have to furlough or let people go. That was, a big concern for superintendents weeks back. I think we did our due diligence and made some good decisions that I feel good about that. And we actually have included in our budget some additional money that if we did receive a budget cut or two, we've got that cushion in the budget to absorb it.
If and when we're all hoping down, somewhere the next years ahead, we get a vaccine, what are some takeaways that you think your district and maybe others have learned that will be helpful going forward?
In terms of?
Just the way you do school instruction.
How it changes?
How things have changed. Is there anything good that you've learned that will be helpful going forward when there's not a pandemic and things are back to at least relative normal?
Well, you get the flu every year. So, I mean, a lot of things that we have learned we will carry forward. Like, just the protocol with cleaning alone is not going to change. And that's going to do us even better when the flu season comes. I think just being mindful of social distancing, I think educating parents and staff members, don't come to school sick. And now we've got those screening protocol questions that we will be asking parents to make sure that you go through those with your student before you send your student. And our temperature detectors. We're not going to take those down. And, we know in the past, students come sick. They may be fine when they left home and then arrive sick, who knows, but we get them. Well, now we have a process in place to be able, if a student walks in and has a temperature over 100 degrees, we now have an isolation room in place where the nurse can then, use an oral thermometer and make sure that the temperature is correct, et cetera. So those are just some examples of, I think, some practices that make sense, that are good. I do think it thrust us into the digital world. We were one of those districts that was still working on our plan to submit for e-learning. We were not in the e-learning first two cohorts. We have the technology, but we were just we felt like face-to-face was so important that e-learning just can't replace it. But I think the experience and the tools with Zoom, and we've purchased WebEx for licenses for our teachers, I think they've learned that there are some ways that can be very effective to help keep the learning going. That, if we are in this pandemic, that if we start, distance learning, it may be 4 weeks. Well, that was never what e-learning was intended for. It was for weather makeup, right? If you have snow day or, a hurricane or whatever. And so it's really, I think, helped us to really think differently and come up with some solutions that are effective, But let me say, having said all that, we all know as educators, students need to be back in school. It's not just the instruction part that's important. It's the social and the emotional. And we are very concerned about students that are in situations that are unsafe. And, being able to really have that safe place, safe haven, our schools are for many kids. And so, I get the push about getting kids back in because we are concerned about that. And so it's just a difficult decision. And what I've said to my teachers and parents, I understand every reason why we need to be in school. But if I can't protect the physical safety first, then, we just can't come back, because that's the most important thing. But prior to March, our district was just continuing to soar upward. I am so proud of the work that's happened in Anderson 4 over the years. We're in the top 4 districts academically in terms of our instructional program and how our students perform on state and national assessments. That's big. We weren't always in number 4. We had our first national distinguished school at La France. One of 73 schools in the nation that had really moved students and lowered that gap of achievement. And that's huge. We had our second National Blue Ribbon School in the recent years. All of our schools are National Healthy School Award winners. We had 4 excellent ratings. There were just so many indicators that continue to show that our district is moving in the right direction and that we have things in place to ensure that our students, when they leave us, truly are going to be college and career ready. So I say all that to say that, we had some great things. Our band won state again. So there were a lot of things that I think are important that we don't forget about. That, if you choose District 4, your student's going to have an outstanding experience, not just in the classroom, but on the field, on the court, on the stage. There's great opportunities for our students. So now we're in a different chapter, and there's a lot of uncertainty and concern, and rightly so. And I just want to reassure parents that I know district leaders across the state have been working extremely hard, to ensure that the opening of school is going to be safe for our students. And what that looks like, it could change tomorrow. It could change again on the 31st. But I'm proud of the leadership. I don't know if parents understand the number of calls and meetings superintendents have been involved with Molly Spearman, with DHEC. It's been, if not twice a week, it's been once a week. And so, I just feel like there's been great support to help us drive those decisions that are tough.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but what are you going to miss most about being superintendent? This is your final year as superintendent in District 4.
Well, the students and the people. I told the board and the public when I announced my retirement that one of the things that I'm most proud about, obviously we're high performing, and that's because of the people we've got here, but that we really built a team. And I can say when I retire, I don't know many people that can really check that box, that decisions were really collective and that we really operated as one team. And I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that energy that's in a room. I'm going to miss that trusting environment and being able to take a risk. I'm going to miss that atmosphere of being able to share whatever you need to share and know that it's going to be protected. We have that here. I'm going to miss the students. As we've talked before, I'm a very hands-on superintendent in a good way in terms of I'm in my schools. I go on field trips. I travel with my students. They know me by name. I know them by name. And I think that is going to be a huge hole. I will really miss that because they've helped me be a better superintendent and a better person. I've learned from them. And I hope that they would say that I had an impact on them.
And to wrap it up, let's tell people the sand is shifting.
The sand is shifting.
Where can they find the latest information for parents and students from District 4?
We do a lot with Blackboard, so as soon as we make a decision, it goes out with our parent messaging. I'm very active on social media and on our website. We have all the latest information, and so right now our parents know that we have set for 31st. That's when we'll actually get the students back in.
August 31st.
August 31st. It will be face-to-face, and those students that opted virtual will have that. And then as we get closer, they know that I put a big precautionary note that said, if the transmission levels get to an unsafe rating or level based on conversations with local officials, I will make the call to move to distance learning for all students. And I'll do that in advance enough so parents can prepare for that.